I want to talk about, well, what kind of guidance comes to you when you're in the sacred, to help you sort of understand kind of the inside baseball, if you will, of the physics of transformation. We've talked about caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly, this sort of arc of transformation, this pattern. And a pattern like this is called, you can call it a pattern, you can call it a form, you can call it an archetype, which is a fancier word for it. So when I do healing, the overwhelming pattern is that when you enter a healing cycle, right, i.e. a transformation cycle, because when you're like, I need to heal this, I've had these childhood wounds, or I've had this sort of trauma, and I need to sort of, it's affecting my relationships. I'm not going to lose another relationship. I'm not going to have another kid stop talking to me. Like, it's like, I need to sort of figure out what is the deal with this wounded pattern within me and heal it somehow. So that's kind of what I do, right, for a living. And so my experience with, the thousands of people I've worked with is that when you enter into a healing cycle, a transformation cycle, and the majority of people, within a couple of days, your dreams will start to fire up. This is your dreams when you're sleeping, usually. And without getting into all the theory and explanations of why that might be happening, I'll just tell you, I've worked with, probably over 10,000 people at this point on this kind of thing on a one-on-one or group basis. And it's just a thing. This is just what happens. People's dreams start firing up. It's not something that I wanted to do. It's not something I actually talk publicly about so much. But over the years, I've been pulled into helping people read their dreams. Because it's fun, it's interesting. I've realized it is a part of my bliss, but also because it is it's a little bit embarrassing to say it like this, but it is a labor-saving device for me. When you bring me a dream and I help you read the dream, and I'm like, I'm just translating the telegram. I don't know, you tell me if it means anything. They kind of like, all the blood drains from their face and they're like, okay, I got it. And they go away. And we save like months, right, of going around in circles, talking about this and that. They're like, just uncomfortable naturally. When the dream tells you something, it like hits you in the face and you're like, fine. And then you have this sort of stronger resolve. Again, because it's the higher guidance, if you want to call it that, coming from within you, right? It's a part of you saying this to you. It's not me saying it to you. I'm just, interpreting the telegram from symbol into English, and I don't even know what it means because I don't know anything about, typically, the detailed personal life of the person I'm working with. So your dreams will typically fire up. And people will say, well, oh, yeah, I do remember my dreams, but I've never known how to read them. And a lot of other people say, yeah, I never have dreams. I don't dream. Or they say, I do dream, but I never remember them. And then all of a sudden, in like day 3 or 4 of like the 7-day healing program that I do, all of a sudden, voila, magically, I'm shocked. They come back to me and there's this dream. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And sometimes it's a fragment, and sometimes it's like this 7-novel epic saga. And all of that's okay. Right? And so the reason I'm bringing up dreams is that when a person is closed off from the sacred, just locked up, and it does happen, it's okay, right? You live in a kind of, as my friend in Paris has described, you live in a cultural model where everything's like Cartesian, right? Cartesian, as opposed to what I would call mythopoetic. And the Cartesian, obviously, the sort of viewpoint is that the world is dead, we're the only living things, and even we're kind of mechanical. Everything's a clockwork, automatic clockwork. There's nothing divine, there's nothing sacred, nothing's alive. Everything's just dead matter. And that's it, let's just get on with it. Right? As opposed to the mythopoetic view, which is, if we're alive, then we come out of the earth and the universe, so everything must be alive. Right? It just doesn't make sense. Everything's alive. And if we have meaning, we have dreams, we read books, we see signs, we see pandemics like raging across the horizon of our world. you can call it a mechanical, dead, lifeless thing, or you can look at it through a different lens, a mythopoetic lens, and start to see the meaning in some of these things happening. We're not going to get into the global meaning here, but even in your personal life, And so mythopoetic is basically to say, we're going to open ourselves to the suggestion that there are patterns that are discernible in our world and within us. And if there are patterns that are discernible, that are intelligible to us, right, that the counterparty that's presenting this pattern, it could be just nature or whatever, right? If we see meaning in it, then the meaning is not automatically invalid, right? And with that, with those starting blocks, you can go a long way. So when a person is like locked off from all of that, it's like, I don't meditate, I don't want to sit around and like do this online session with this long-haired guy singing Kumbaya. Right? I don't want to do any of that. But when the other side is trying to get a message to you, right? And it's typically those kind of people that, I mean, I don't want to overgeneralize, but there are other fact patterns of a person who's like hardcore closed off to this stuff, that, you know, as implied by these furrowed brows, will like spill over into other aspects of their life. You know, just leave it at that. What will happen is that they are the people who will often have the most vivid dreams. Because when you close yourself off to the sacred in every realm, one of the last resorts for the sacred to get message to you is when you are asleep. Right? When you are asleep, you are in a zone of no fear, no threat, and no control. I mean, you're out. Right? Presumably, if you allowed yourself to fall asleep, your door's locked, the alarm system's on, it's safe, you trust everyone in the home with you. You may have a storm raging inside of you that wakes you up at 3 in the morning. But that's separate, right? You still have to sleep. So you sleep, you're devoid of fear, threat, and control. And within that, the sacred, you know, kind of antenna dish opens. And if there's a big backlog of guidance that's trying to get to you, you will have massive dreams, massive dreams. And the problem with our profane world is that there are no, you know, very few resources to help people actually kind of understand their dreams. So there's 2 ideas here I'm trying to kind of put across here. One is that even if you don't know how to get into the sacred, or you feel like you're bad at it, you are dipping into the sacred all throughout the day. You just don't have the vocabulary to call it that. So when you are sleeping a full 1/3 of your life, you're basically in a realm of the sacred. Right? The messages you get through dreams and all that stuff, it's not usable because we've lost the playbooks, the Rosetta Stones for translating that into sort of usable stuff when we wake up and step back into the profane world, but it's there. So right off the bat, you know, sleep 8 hours a day, 1/3 of your day is basically spent in the sacred. And then in the exercise below, we'll talk about other ways of picking up when you are in the sacred by accident, a kind of drive-by sacred, dips into the sacred throughout the day. But for now, one of the biggest areas where people are typically in the sacred is when you're dreaming, is when you're sleeping and dreaming. And so what I want to do for the rest of this sort of topic section is I want to give you a little bit of guidance on how to read dreams, and which is a huge topic. But it does relate to the sacred in the way that I've just explained. And also, when I say, you know, when I help people move into a healing cycle, and people's dreams fire up, right, a healing/transformation cycle, with the pandemic, right, a good chunk of the world is being forced into pressure and containment and transformation/healing. And because of that, I know from the emails I'm getting from my community all around the world that people's dreams are firing up. Big time, right? Big time. And I can't read everyone's dreams individually. That's like that. So there's too many people here, right? But this is actually part of what I do as like a healer kind of person. So in this sacred space, I want to acknowledge the surge in dreams as a thing, as you go into transformation from caterpillar into cocoon. Okay, it's a real valid thing, and I want to give you some tools here for you to navigate that world on your own a little bit. And when I say dreams, dreams when you're asleep, more subtly and difficult to kind of pick up often, ironically, even though you're awake, are daydreams, waking visions, fantasies, which I'll talk about a little bit after. So I'll give you the quick kind of guidance on how to read dreams. So when I read a dream for someone, generally I'll, my weekly sort of private advising session for the people I'm doing healing with. I'll give you my 2 cents, but then you are the ultimate knower of what the dream means, right? You are the authority, not me. So when I read a dream for you, if we disagree on any points, you are always correct. Process-wise, I'm just throwing stuff at you to I'm like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, looking at like the crystal from different angles. But you are the one in the driver's seat, right? So if we were playing golf, you are the golfer, I'm the caddy, right? I'm like, well, hole 9, it breaks a little hard to the left. You got to be careful, but I'm not swinging the club. You're swinging the club. The scorecard's yours, and then you tip me at the end. I don't tip you. When something feels like it clicks, and you say, "Oh wow, that's it," right? It's just this flash of like it's obvious. That's it. Then that is usually the sign that that's the right interpretation, right? That's why if I disagree with you, it's like it doesn't matter what I think, because a dream is almost one of the most intimate forms of communication between a part of your inner self and you. And it's not for me or anybody else to like get in the middle of that. Like, so if you have this telegram of a dream and you're like, I get she's trying to tell me something, will you help? I typically won't ask your background or sort of life details or whatever. I don't want to know. I'm like, blah, 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 I don't want to know, right? I'm not a therapist, right? So I'll take the dream and I'll like translate the symbol into like English, explain the physics, and I'll do a demo, right? And then I hand it back to you and I'm like, so that's kind of what I made of it. And then how that applies to your real life, I don't know. You can read the telegram and then you can throw it away, burn it, mark as spam because you don't want to hear the message. Or you can say, crap, okay, there's some things I need to think about. And it's like, that's great. That's for you. Like you retain your own sovereignty at every step of the process, which is critical. Because if you don't build those muscles and you're just reliant on me or anybody else, I mean, what's the point, right? What's the point? And then the last point in dream, kind of absorbing dreams, is this idea of, so when you read a dream, the basic rule of thumb for reading a dream is that every actor in the dream is taken as a different part of your own inner self. So if you meet a friend, right, it's not actually the friend, but the friend as a symbol of a part of you, symbolized by your friend because of how you think of him. Right, your dream will grab the friend as a symbol, as an at-hand symbol from like current events. In the process of trying to put together this diorama to like say something to you internally. Right, so if you see, let's say, you see your ex and your ex is a guy. And in the dream, your ex says something to you. That's not your ex actually. If your real life ex needs to say that, he'll just say that. But the inner X is a symbol of typically your inner masculine, a part of your own inner self, saying something to you. okay, or doing something to you, offering something, running away, whatever. So colors, rooms, feelings, landscapes, these are all part of the communication. When you see it like that, it is, you know, it is a very kind of, like any fairy tale or myth, it's inexhaustible. um, any symbol, like any symbol or pattern, it is pretty inexhaustible. The sort of caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly symbol or archetype or pattern is inexhaustible. We could talk for hours on the different sort of physics and sort of angles of that. And every dream will present itself as a whole sort of object, an artifact that can be read in that manner. People will often ask, well, why doesn't the dream just send me an email? Why doesn't it just like tell me in words? The answer is sometimes it does, but even the words will be gobbledygook. And the reason for that is that the part of you that dreams comes from a very old place in us. And you can say it biophysically, you could say it metaphorically. It is a pre-literate part of our wiring, right? Even the Neanderthals dreamed, even Cro-Magnon man and woman dreamed, right? Before they were literate. So the language that's used is symbolic, right? That is the base source code of human, even superhuman communication, is symbolic language. Okay. I do always recommend, especially in times like this, keeping a dream journal. It's just a little notebook like this by the bed. And what I recommend on retreat when I'm helping people with their dreams, I'll say, keep it by the bed. Like this guy has a little pen that I just keep there. And when you're picking up sort of details and you're actually able to wake up and remember, keep the light off. Once the blue light hits you, everything evaporates. And ideally, you write in the dark, so you lose as little as possible of the detail. And so the notebook I use is small because I can write in the dark one line and then flip it without the risk of overwriting. So anyway, these things, when you keep a dream journal, often if you have recurring dreams, it's like the dream side hitting the send button over and over because it hasn't gotten a read receipt. You haven't had the click of like, oh crap, this is what this means. So people will have dreams that have been recurring for 30 years, and they'll bring it to me or somebody like me. They'll finally get the reading, they'll click, and then the dream will stop recurring. Like it'll stop on a dime. I'll probably give you a break for 3 or 4 days as they like change the set on the stage and everything, like change the costumes of the actors. And then the dreams will fire up again, but it will be these elaborate, the image is always like they're down there banging on a pipe with a rock, SOS, 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 for like 20, 30 years. And when you finally hear it and you bang back, the SOS stops and they're like, we're saved, they found us. And then they start banging back, but they don't bang back SOS anymore. They're like, okay, we've got 3 guys down here, they're injured, we need a medevac, we need food, shoot the internet service down here, we need like batteries for our phones, et cetera, right? So that's kind of the feeling of it. Okay, so that's my pitch for like at least not completely dismissing your dreams out of hand. Okay, and what I would say here is that I'll give you a couple of classic patterns and kind of what they typically translate into. And then if you want, we can do an actual kind of demo if you're interested. You can say in the chat or whatever. I'll just kind of go with the flow. Some of the classic patterns you see in beginning dreams, like people who don't really listen to their dreams, but they just start getting them and they notice some patterns. Number one is being chased. All right, we live in the profane, so number one is I'm being chased, I'm being mugged, it's a boogeyman, it's a robber, I'm at home and I've got a gun and they're like breaking in through the windows. I'm driving and someone's chasing me in a car. And typically, intruder, thief, boogeyman, zombie, when you read that really quickly, you basically take everything in the dream as a symbol of a different part of your own inner self. So there, the simple sort of translation would be that there is a part of you that is trying to get to you. It's tried a lot of different ways by that point, typically. Right? It's come to you in waking, thoughts that you have that you stuff down, desires that you have that you stuff down, that you're forced to stuff down to keep your mask on. And then it can't come to you. You shut it off. So it has to come to you in the only other sacred channel there is, when it's sleeping, when you're sleeping. And even when you sleep, it comes to you, you stuff it down. You ignore it. You say dreams are just like neurons firing, which, nobody knows that, right? They just presume. You may take sleeping pills to nuke whatever is happening down there just to shut it up, right? Meditation, people will often say, well, I need to meditate. And I'm like, great, and I teach them some meditation. And everything quiets down after a while. But after 3 weeks, they come back and meditation isn't working anymore. It's like, what do you mean? When you sit, you're not able to sit? And then that's when they disclose that they were using meditation to basically get themselves to sleep. And after 3 weeks, the powers that be within you are like, okay, this is not true meditation. They're just trying to use meditation as another sleeping pill tranquilizer dart to shut us up. And it, we're slow. It takes us about 3 weeks to be wise to your tricks. But if you use meditation in that profane way to control, as opposed to open yourself to message, right, then it's not going to work anymore. Because, so meditation will stop working right after 3 weeks, and then we'll have a separate kind of conversation. So here, typically, there is a suppressed part of you and valid part of you that is this thing coming back in transformation, right? And when you push it away, it keeps coming. It comes to you in dreams, you push the dream away. And if you were this part of you, what would you do? How would you escalate? Gradually, gently, because you don't want to hurt anything, because it's you too. I mean, this house is mine too. If I burn it down, I have no place to live either. Right? But you're not listening to me. So how do I get to you? And often what will happen is I come to you during the day, you dismiss me. I come to you in dreams, you dismiss me. My only final recourse is to start pulling the theater, dramatic levers of fear, right? So that I will present now, not as your brother coming to you to talk to you, but as boogeyman chasing you. And you'll be afraid that I'm going to shoot you or stab you or something else. And then you finally wake up in a cold sweat in 3 a.m. And I'm like, okay, now I'm sorry I had to do it like that, but now I've got your attention. And when you wake up at 3 a.m, still worrying that the guy's in your house, you magically have remembered your dream. Right? This is not me doing. This is a pattern that you see in thousands upon thousands of people. There's a counterparty within you where its incentives are completely aligned with you. If you die, it dies too, right? But you're not listening. And it's how do I get him or her to listen without burning the whole house down? And it is this sort of pressure cooker of a thing. And transformations, pressure and containment, force you in the container with this thing you're running away from, until you finally turn around, start talking to it, and come to some kind of reconciliation, right? And the first step of that is to realize this thing chasing you is not a demon, it's not the devil, it is a part of you that you have disavowed and disowned. Far from being the devil, there are great thinkers in the world who have described it as it's not the devil, it's Christ and you're Peter before the crucifixion, right? Denying the guy, right? What is it? 3 times before the third cock crows for the morning. Right? You're like, no, it's the devil. I I should kill it. It's ideologically incorrect. And the thinkers that talk about this stuff are like, no, it's the opposite. This is like the best part of you. This is the most powerful part of you coming in this guise of intruder to scare you, to wake you up so that you remember the stinking dream. And you know it's the most powerful part of you because if you're soaked in the world of the profane and everyone's trying to put a gun to your head to get you to put this mask on of the good girl or the strong, silent, obedient guy, what part of you would they fear the most? Obviously, it will be the part of you that is the spark of the divine, the thing that makes you special, the thing that makes you different from everybody else, that gives you this unique gift to the world. Right? The profane has no place for that. Everything's cookie cutter because everything's driven by fear. So the thing that you are taught to stuff down ironically ends up at the end of the saga becoming the thing that is not the equal, but the first among equals, the highest part of you, the best part of you. And all the sort of classic sayings, the thing that you thought was your biggest vice ends up being your biggest virtue. And then other ways of describing the physics, other aspects of the physics are that when they say, when I teach bliss and we talk about finding your bliss in life and your true meaning and purpose, that out of your deepest wound will come your greatest gift to the world. Okay, all of these things relate to the physics of this. So to reconcile this, you would use various healing techniques to get to the bottom of like what is this you've like pushed away and how do you sort of bring it back and what compromise, what reconciliation you can come to. And I don't know if we'll have time to do a full demo with like a fairy tale. I think we'll skip that for now. But if people are interested, fairy tales are basically collective dreams that have stood the test of time. And you can read fairy tales as dreams as well. And when you read them, and they are these kind of global patterns across humankind. I mean, the pattern of caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly is itself a kind of fairy tale, right? The first fairy tale I typically tell to teach this stuff is called The Frog King, Grimm Brothers #1, like Princess and the Frog, basically, the Disney-ified version. And you can read that as a dream, and the meaning that comes from it is completely different from the typical profane meaning, where the Princess and the Frog, right? It's like when mothers read this story to their daughters, they're like, well, so the moral is, dear, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find Prince Charming, right? And that's valid, right? That's valid as a profane sort of how do I get my stuff done in the profane world, but in the sacred world, there's a completely different sort of meaning. So maybe we'll do that in a future session if people are interested. So basically, what I want to say is your dreams will likely be firing up at this point. I would note them down. You can find someone like me or someone like me to sort of help read them if that would be helpful. You can read them yourself, certainly, and accrue your own kind of inner shared vocabulary of like what different things mean. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that daydreams also count. Daydreams, waking visions, or what some people typically in a derogatory way call fantasy, right? When you sort of start fantasizing about things in the middle of the day, those fully count as dreams too. And people say, well, that's just a fantasy. And in the profane world, it's like everyone disregards fantasy, but fantasy is a way of higher guidance coming to you, putting ideas, patterns, visions, images in your head that then turn into action in the profane. And what I mean by that is, let me put it this way. Everything great, and even the not great things, but everything powerful and grand and grandiose in the profane world starts in the sacred. Okay? And to wit, everything we see in the world, every vaccine, the Eiffel Tower, the Golden Gate Bridge, sort of all these great things in it, the very idea of democracy, right? The very idea of medicine, medical discovery, scientific discoveries. All of these things we cherish and celebrate in the world of the profane started as a fantasy in somebody's head. Okay. So the root of everything starts in fantasy, in guidance and flashes of intuition, insight. We typically shush, don't talk about that. But then they come out and it's like, whoa, look at that guy. Where does he play? How does he play music like that? How does he speak like that? He's so inspired, right? She's incredible, right? How does she like sort of move and dance and inspire other people like that? All of that comes from the sacred. Right? But in the profane world, we're afraid to talk about that because it's a realm we have no control over. And so we fear it and we feel threatened by it and we seek to control it. So anyway, long story short, dreams matter. Write your dreams down. And when you get dreams in the waking time, don't dismiss those either. Right? Do not dismiss the power of fantasy or dreams. You don't have to talk about them with other people, but you can take your own inner guidance from them and then move out in the world from there. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say on that topic. So as we continue to travel together through this storm, as you continue to be in a state of pressure and containment, which then falls you into transformation. Typically, your dreams and fantasies will fire up, right? And the rain is like becoming more powerful as I say this, right? And hopefully what I've just explained about how to read dreams and even fantasy will be of some practical utility and comfort for you.